Why my shrimp is dying? Why are my red cherry shrimp is dying? Why are crystal red shrimp dying? Why are my Amano shrimp dying? Why are all my shrimp dying? Why are my ghost shrimp dying? Why are my dwarf shrimp dying? Why is freshwater shrimp dying? Why are my ghost shrimp dying? Why are my glass shrimp dying? It's the end of this list is, I can't see it, right? So this is what I get asked daily, as I just said. But to boil it down, right, it comes down to this: why my shrimp die? Why are my shrimp dying? Right, so as you can tell, I get asked this a bazillion times. So much so that it's an everyday occurrence across all platforms, as I've already said, right? So I thought today we'd take a little dive into it and we'd try and answer some of these people's questions, because it can be quite a complicated thing to answer, right? And it's very, very hard for me to answer in a few sentences in a paragraph on YouTube or Facebook, right? So what I'll do, guys, is when I get asked this question, roughly round about these type of questions, I'll link you guys to this video, right? And there will be a checklist underneath in the description. I'll also leave a link to a permanent checklist, just in case the description ever gets altered, where you can also have a look and see and check for yourself, right? Because the reason that it is so complicated, guys, is because there's so many different reasons why shrimp can die. It's not like it's just one specific thing that I have to answer. The reason it's so hard to answer is because the question is so vague. Why my shrimp die? How am I meant to know how your shrimp die? Unless I have some like godly powers of like, I know exactly why your shrimp die. Unless I have that kind of power, I'm never going to be able to answer it properly, right? So that's why we've come up with this list that I want you guys to have a look at. Where do you start though? Because you really have to go back to the beginning of how you set up a tank and then work your way forward from there, right? So we're going to quickly go over this list. One of the first ones that you should consider is this. Your shrimp may not be genetically healthy, right? The animals are the same as us. We get cancer, we die of old age, that kind of thing. It's exactly the same for shrimp, right? So you have to bear that in mind when you ask the question, why my shrimp die? That might be just bad genetics, or it could be old age. You also get a lot of shrimp dying of other things in the tank. Could be predation. If you have fish in the tank, that is something else you have to watch for, right? But if you want to go back very logically and really find out why your shrimp are dying, right? This is something that you have to go do. You have to go back to the beginning, the start of when you set up your tank, the species of shrimp you have, and have you set up the tank properly for that species of shrimp. Right, so that would be the first thing. Let me see, I'm going to go over here. Right, so if it's not that kind of thing, right, there is other things, but these are like minor things that will, that's probably not the cause if you bought a tank properly through the proper ways. Like if you went to an aquarium shop and you bought a tank from there, it is probably going to be shrimp safe, right? But if you go second hand and you buy a second-hand tank, just as an illustration, if I bought this tank second-hand and it was made by someone that didn't know what they were doing, one of the things you may consider is the silicone might not be shrimp safe or animal safe, because a lot of these silicones are used in bathrooms and stuff, and they'll have like antifungal, anti-mold things in it. Okay, so that is something that you must consider as well, right? So this is how far back we're going into the questioning of why my shrimp die, right? So let's go on to the next one. We've done that one. Bought tank was the tank second hand. This is quite an important one as well. This tank, when I got it, I think it was a reef tank, and the silicone was a slightly different colour, right? And I'm pretty sure that is when they use like a medication and it gets absorbed into the silicone. That's something that you must think about when you're thinking about why my shrimp die, right? Because there could possibly still be some kind of chemical stuck in the silicone that will continue to kill the shrimp, especially if it's a copper-based medication. Going past the tank, make sure you don't clean the tank with anything that is like a spray canister type thing. Don't use like window polish, all that kind of stuff on the glass, because any overspray that goes in could potentially kill your shrimp. The third one after the things that we've talked about there would be water source. What is your water source? If you're using tap water, things you have to consider is there may be chemicals in the water that might kill your shrimp. Then other things as well, like where does the water come from? And that's quite important because different places where the water comes from, you will have different levels of bacteria. Right? Is the water recycled, as an example? You never know, right? This is things that you have to consider. And then on to other things like, while we're talking about water, if your tank's already set up, are you doing too large a water change? It's all things that you have to consider. Right? I don't want to make this video long and drawn out where it seems like I'm repeating myself, guys, but this is things that you must ask yourself about why your shrimp are dying. Right? Go back to the beginning, follow this list that I'm going to link in the description. Right? And we're going to roughly, quickly go over this. Right? I'm just basically going to read it off to you. What is the temperature of your water? Very important. If your water is too hot for the shrimp, it equals deaths. What is the pH of the water? If the pH of the water isn't suitable for your shrimp, it equals deaths. What is the GH of the water? GH measures the general hardness. Right? If you have very soft water shrimp in a hard water tank, chances are they will die. Right? It's the same with carbonic hardness. Carbonic hardness is the amount of carbons in the water. This generally is the thing that fixes the pH in a tank, right? So, as an example, in a soft water tank, we want no carbon hardness because we have a soil that will fix the pH to a certain level, right? But if you have a sand or gravel based tank, then you need a KH level, or eventually you will get pH crashes, right? Because there's nothing to fix the pH. This is what the carbonate hardness does in a tank with an inert gravel or substrate, right? Other things to do with water is if you're using the wrong TDS reading in your reverse osmosis, what buffer do you use if you're using reverse osmosis as well? What brand are you making yourself? Is it the correct type for the type of shrimp that you use? We briefly touched on the substrate there. Do your research is all I'm saying regarding an active substrate, because you do get bad ones as well. Make sure you get the right substrate again for the type of shrimp that you have. Filtration is quite important as well. Do you have enough filtration? Is there enough oxygen going into the tank? Apart from that, there's not really much more to say about filtration. Does it have enough food? Because bacteria in a tank needs food as well. Cycling. So you can see where we're going here. We're going methodically through them. This might not all be in order, but you're getting the gist, right? So substrate is in order. It is actually in order. Substrate, filtration. You have your water in your tank. We're doing it properly. Then is it cycled? Make sure that you're cycling the tank long enough and properly. Make sure that you have some kind of food source in the water. What I do with mine, guys, is I sprinkle powdered bacterial foods in the water on the top and just let it mix. And that food will go off and it will create biofilm. Your bacteria will have a food source. Do your 10% water changes, as we've talked about before. How long did you cycle the tank for? I'm not sure if I mentioned that there, but that is one thing that you should consider as well. Because I see a lot of people making tanks and just not cycling them. And that equals death in a shrimp tank. And the sure way that you can tell if someone's just set up the tank and they put the stuff all straight in and the shrimp is because everything will be covered in bubbles. Right, and this goes back to the thing where we're talking about water preparation. If you don't age the water before you put it in the tank, all that excess oxygen gets stuck to stuff, right? So it's very important that you follow these steps. Really important, guys. You'll have lots of success if you do, right? So follow what I'm telling you here. Again, as I said, all these questions will be in the description of the video. If you want to copy them, because there will be a list of little questions here, if you want to copy them and answer them and then post them in my Facebook group called Aquarium Shrimp Keeping, or the one that is probably better is for you to go and make a post on aquariumshrimpkeeping.com. Again, the links are in the description. The other one that you should consider is we've been through the cycle, substrate, water, filtration is plants. Because shrimp are not, how do I word this properly? Shrimp are very susceptible to toxins from plants that have been treated with chemicals in pet shops. Right, so when you go to the pet shop and if you buy a plant, most of the time that plant will have been treated with something to kill snails. Because pet shops don't want tons of snails in their tanks eating their plants that they have to sell, right? So they often will use some kind of chemical that contains copper, right? And copper is deadly to shrimp. Right, so that is something else that you have to consider. Now, did I buy the plant that I've just put in this tank and my shrimp are dying? Did I buy that plant from a pet shop and did I see snails in it or didn't I? This is stuff you've got to ask yourself. The next one would be, you generally set up your tank. How do you acclimate the shrimp that you have, right? If you plop and drop them, if you chuck them straight in the tank, there is a very, very high chance that the shrimp will die. Plop and drop, I do not advocate it at all. I know that there's quite a few people that do it, and they say that they have okay results with it, but I would never do that to a shrimp where you have an animal in a bag of water, especially an animal that is very susceptible to changes in the water. Right, so think of it like this: shrimp, they don't have a skeletal structure like we do. They have a hard shell. Right, and the way they change their shell is when they grow, or when, like the females, for example, when they get so big that they have to change their shell after letting all the babies grow. Because often when female shrimp, when they have eggs, they will grow inside and the shell will be too small. And this is why after a lot of the time when you see a female shrimp, once they release all the babies, they will molt. It's like hand in hand. Babies are born, shrimp will molt, right? And when you try and force the molt by doing something artificial, like doing a massive water change or plop and drop as an example, that shrimp wants to molt, and if it can't molt properly, it will die. This is where you get the thing like the ring of death on the neck. Specifically the thing, the ring of death on the neck is, I believe it's caused by doing too large a water change. So you do the drip acclimation, do a few drips at a time, and your shrimp will love you for it. Because as a word of, as a backup to this, you get no professional breeder plopping and dropping shrimp. None of them. None of them that I know of. They all drip acclimate, right? So take from that what you will. Right, so the next one is an issue that can go either way. Right? You can either have not enough shrimp in a tank, or you can have far too much shrimp in a tank early on. Right, and I'll go over both as well. Right, so the first one is not having enough shrimp in the tank and you feeding the tank too much. It's quite a common thing for people to do this. Slightly overfeed the tank and they end up killing the shrimp with pollution, chemicals, etc. You know where it's going, right? The other one is the opposite way, where you put too much in the tank, too many shrimp in the tank before the tank is ready. Like the bacteria in the filter just isn't, the colony isn't big enough to like process all the waste from the shrimp, and then there's like an excess of waste and then the shrimp start to die, right? So that can go either way. And that leads us on to the question of how much do you actually feed your shrimp, right? And it's a very hard question to answer a lot of the time, because people will ask me, Mark, how much do you feed your shrimp? Right, and it's very, very tank specific. Right, I could have 100 blue bolts in this tank. I could have 5 wine reds in this tank here. You probably can't see it. Just as an example, they both require different amounts of food, right? So it's a kind of thing where you put a certain amount of food in the tank in a dish. I always recommend you use dishes. When people see me on stream not putting the food in the dish, it's because I want the shrimp to come to the front. That's the only reason I do that. But you watch the shrimp like a hawk once you're putting the food in. See how much they eat. If they're not eating it all, then you're putting too much in, right? And it's much easier for you to guesstimate how much you think they're going to eat rather than putting too much in and then trying to remove it. Alright, so get into the habit of just slightly underfeeding them and watching them and see what they do, okay? One of the other things you consider as well is things like aerosols in your house. Aerosols, pesticides, anything like that near your tanks will undeniably kill your shrimp. It can go as far as someone using a fly spray in another room in the house. Right? That can kill your shrimp. So this is something you have to bear in mind. On the subject of pesticides, Lucy recently was treated for ticks and lice, and me, unknowingly, I was clapping Lucy, basically like this, right? I went and washed my hands, and then I started to do a little order for the shrimp, right? And I was noticing something wrong with the shrimp where they were going a little bit upside down, but they were still moving. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? And it took me like at least 30 minutes to figure it out. It was this stuff that was on Lucy. I had clapped her, right? And it wasn't enough for me to just wash my hands. You know, like the stuff that they use actually soaks into the dog's skin. So it soaked into my hands a little bit. And when I was doing the bags, the fish bags, I'd actually put my hand into the bag to open them, and like this. Right, so that is something that you have to be aware of. Dogs, cats, insecticides, pesticides, aerosols. I don't really like people using any kind of hairspray and stuff in the house, but I understand that the girls will do that, but try and keep that away from your shrimp room, okay? Things like smoking as well. Try not to smoke near your tanks, because at the end of the day, guys, a tank, all it is when you smoke is it is a big filtration unit, right? Any smoke that goes into the air will be taken out by the water, right? So you're actually adding the carcinogenics, the lead, whatever's in cigarettes these days, into your tank, right? And it is not good for your shrimp or your fish. Alright guys, we have been through quite an extensive list. That was almost 20 plus questions that will be in the description below on why are my shrimp dying, right? So if you need help with this, please go into the description, have a look at it, check it out, and just ask yourself, go over it, and it will come to you. Eventually you'll see, oh, maybe this happened, or oh, maybe that happened, or oh, maybe I did buy that plant from the pet store and there might have been something on it, right? Or even something as simple as, oh, I did a 50% water change last week. That could be a reason why I have the ring of death on the bark, right? So I want you to check this list out, and if you have any questions, then please use this list and take it over to one of the forums or the Facebook group. Links are in the description, and I will catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope this has been very helpful. Love you all. Happy shrimp keeping, guys. Boop.